My name's Henry. I'm a senior studying civil engineering at the University of Kansas, and I realized I have a unique opportunity that I think I could share with the people of YouTube, and that is I have access to 4 generations of Mazda hatchbacks. And so I thought it would be kind of cool to make a video just kind of showcasing just how Mazda has built hatchbacks over time, some common threads between the cars, and sort of give them a overview kind of thing of those cars. And I hope you guys enjoy. So the first car I have for you guys today, this is a 1988 Mazda 323 GTX. So this was a turbocharged all-wheel drive version of the 1988 Mazda 323, which was one of Mazda's first series of hatchback models. And so I'm just going to give you guys a brief walk around and then tell you a bit more about what it's like to drive this Mazda hatchback. So yeah, this is the Mazda 323 GTX. Pretty much the only way you can tell it's a GTX model is by this double lip spoiler here in the back. And then we'll get inside of the vehicle. So look, inside the vehicle we have the 270-degree gauges right here. And then we've got right here the magic stuff right here, the full-time 4-wheel drive locking differential. So yeah, this is the Mazda 323 GTX. There were about 1,200 of these ever produced for the United States. They were a rally homologation special for Group A, WRC. And yeah, they produced about 130 horsepower, but the car also weighs like almost nothing at about 2,600 pounds. It's a really nimble car to drive. It's got McPherson strut in the front, and in the back it's got some kind of trailing arm suspension. This car doesn't have really any modifications done to it, but these were really popular autocross cars back in the day, SCCA rallycross cars, just because the all-wheel drive, lightweight, and basically the engine in this is it's the Miata 1.6 engine with stronger rods and also a turbocharger. So it's a pretty nippy little engine. They could be tuned to make more in the 180s, 150s, and of course with different turbochargers could make more. The one weak link on these cars was the powertrain. The transmission, the second gear is known to go out, and the transmission in general is known to not be very strong. Of course, in the WRC variants, they had a specific rally transmission that was used. And so yeah, this is the car. I think I'll do like a tiny little pull up to the speed limit, of course, in this little section here, and we'll move on to the next one. So we just went for a ride in the Mazda 323 GTX from 1988. Now, in between then and this next car, there was the Mazdaspeed Protege, which was also a performance turbocharged Mazda sedan, but it was not a hatchback. Now we get to the Mazdaspeed lineage. This is a 2011 Mazdaspeed 3 and is owned by my personal friend Kyle, and he's here to tell you a bit about it before I take it for a spin.
This is my 2011 Mazdaspeed 3, second generation of the Mazdaspeed 3. Turbocharged 2.3 liter engine under the hood, 4-cylinder. I am a motorsports student at Purdue University, Indianapolis, and I use this car for autocross in the street touring hatchback class. That is not something these cars are foreign to, as they were pretty much built as a car which Mazda could use to run that 2.3 liter turbo engine in touring car racing. I have a second set of wheels and tires that I use for autocross, not on the car right now because it's winter, but those are a little bit wider, a little bit lighter than these, and overall this car just has this wonderful feeling of torque. It's a fantastic car to drive. It handles really well. I've got an upgraded front and rear sway bar on it right now. Factory suspension, but it does hold its own in street touring hatch class. Overall, just a fantastic car to drive. I love every bit of it. You know, it's great. A little shot of the rear end here.
Awesome. Okay, so this is the first time in probably 4 years of Kyle owning this car that I've been able to drive it, and I'm doing it on video, which is terrifying, but it's a fun car to drive. We're going to try to take it out here, do a little second gear, just partial throttle type stuff, hear the turbo kind of things. So that's what's coming up. That's partial throttle. Oh, no way. This thing has so much more power than the GTX, and the driving experience is so much more refined. It's like front-wheel drive GTX of the future. That's how you can describe it. Like, it's crazy how this thing drives. Time to notice the handling of this compared to. So I also have a Mazda 3 from 2015, and so I'm comparing it to how this drives. Obviously, won't get a very good comparison. You know, our friend here has autocross that would know better, but it holds it. It holds it. It's hard to really handle it that much to do that, especially my first time driving.
Here, give her some beans.
Right now?
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
Beans! Sorry about that.
There we go. Little tire spin.
Oh man, this thing has so much power, and it just, you don't even need full throttle. You just go. It's like as soon as you're like a little bit of throttle, this is nice. This is like, I don't know. Compare it with the GTX. I mean, the GTX is like, it's very 80s. It's very it's like a whole-wheel drive, 80s. You know, they're trying some stuff. This thing is like, they've tried it a few times already, and they got the formula down. Like, it's very like, the steering is very tight. So good, so good, so fun to drive. Hey everyone, this is the 2015 Mazda 3. So we just saw a Mazdaspeed 3, which is from the generation of Mazda 3 before this. Now, this car came out in 2015. 2015 was a very pivotal year for Mazda. That year, they bought all of their shares that Ford had purchased of Mazda back from Ford. They decided to develop the current Mazda 3 into their own version, which had a lot more Mazda development, a lot more design decisions made by Mazda, and they were able to make a lot of improvements on the Ford C platform and pretty much make it their own car. A lot of those improvements they were able to make were in the terms of making the car more efficient, more lightweight, making the chassis more rigid. They increased the rake, I guess is what it's called. It's the angle that the suspension goes from the hub to the mounting on the car. They increased that from the previous generation to the same as an RX-8. It's the same angle, meaning that it's improvement in handling capabilities over that previous generation. A big improvement, again, like I mentioned, is the weight of the vehicle. So the sedan variant of the Mazda 3 for this generation weighed about 2,800 pounds, which is about the same weight as an S2000, which is very impressive for just being a economy compact car. Another addition they made to the efficiency of this car was the Skyactiv G engine, which uses a 14:1 compression ratio to make the engine a lot more efficient. It makes about the same amount of torque as it does horsepower, which is very impressive for just a regular 2-liter engine. So some things that I've done with this car is I've included a rear sway bar, some different wheels and tires. It has a tune from Orange Virus in the Philippines. It has this aftermarket spoiler, and on top of that I've taken it to autocross a few times to be able to really understand sort of the driving dynamics of the vehicle and give you a thorough, in-depth analysis of how this thing drives. So yeah, as you can see, another place where Mazda made a lot of improvements for this generation and for the generation following, which is the upcoming review of the CX-30 Turbo. They made a lot of improvements here to the interior. So we have the leather wrapped steering wheel that used a lot of their own design language for the interior, and for the gauges, which they styled after motorcycle gauges. And yeah, so I think now we are going to take it for a drive and just kind of show you what it sounds like, give some driving impressions. So yeah, here's driving the Mazda 3. Just gonna go for a whole some differences that you will notice about this generation of Mazda hatchback is they did some different tuning with the steering compared to the previous generation of Mazda 3. It tends to feel lighter, but there's also a you get feedback from the wheel when you need it, so it's not like you lose detail, and it still will weight up in a corner. Like the steering will still weight up when you're cornering, but it becomes like, say you're driving on snow or gravel, you won't feel a lot of the resistance from something like that you might regularly feel in the previous generation, or maybe even some other cars. Some other differences, you do notice there's some, I would say that the chassis does feel a lot lighter than this is probably, other than the 323 GTX in this video, this is going to be the second lightest car, so you do notice that. And then because this car has some it has nicer all-season tires, it has the extreme contact from Continental, you notice the that improvement in the cornering ability. Here we'll find it. But yeah, you can kind of just hear what the car sounds like here. There is the 2015 Mazda 3 2-liter automatic yeah, Mazda hatchback. On to the next one, guys. Okay everyone, so welcome to present day. The year is 2024. If you want the best in performance Mazda hatchbacks from a new Mazda dealership in 2024, you are looking at a Mazda 3 Turbo. Now this is the Mazda CX-30 Turbo, which is pretty much a Mazda 3 Turbo made to look more like a crossover. It's just lifted a tiny amount and has some of this body cladding. As we can see, this plastic body cladding. It is pretty much a Mazda 3 Turbo. Same engine, same chassis, same all-wheel drive drivetrain. So Mazda has come back with a all-wheel drive drivetrain for this year. It's a 2.5 liter turbo engine in this car, and so that means it's making a little bit more power than the Mazdaspeed 3, which we previously showed you on this video. It's making significantly more torque at 320 foot-pounds of torque, meaning it's a pretty quick car, but it does weigh more than any other vehicle on this list. And a lot of that is due to the all-wheel drive, but also the very luxurious, if I can unlock it. This is a very luxurious vehicle on the inside. I mean, we have heated seats right here. We have all kinds of soft touch and leather on the interior. We have a sunroof. I mean, pretty much they gave you the full luxury spec for the turbo model of this car. And I'm gonna take this for a quick little drive down the road with you guys and just give you some driving impressions based off of, you know, someone who's driven the very original all-wheel drive turbo Mazda, the 323 GTX, and someone who's driven a Speed and the generation before this, the Mazda 3. Okay, yeah, so here it is, driving the latest and greatest Mazda turbo hatchback here, the Mazda CX-30 Turbo. And so yeah, I would say, you know, it might, the actual acceleration might be about the same as the Speed 3 from my experience, But because the car is so up high with that sort of all-wheel drive and off-road suspension, it does not really give that sense of speed in the same way as the Speed 3, and definitely not the same as the GTX. The 323 GTX, which was the first car we reviewed, has a sense of speed when you're driving that makes you feel like you are going way fast and you do not have to break the speed limit. Whereas if you get to the speed limit in this car, it seems like you are just like trundling along. But yeah, the actual feeling of torque and acceleration in this car is quite impressive, and the ride quality, I would say, is much improved over previous generations. The actual handling may be about the same as the Mazda 3, the 2015 Mazda 3 hatch, or it might be a little bit worse because the car's center of gravity is raised up. But yeah, that's pretty much my driving impressions of this car. It's a very nice car to drive. Of the cars, I think this is the one I could see myself feeling comfortable in for the longest on a road trip, which I think, you know, there's something to say for that, as the improvements in luxury and quality have been made at Mazda lately. So yeah, this is the CX-30 Turbo.